Welcome back to Lakers News Fan Report, where we bring you the latest and most exciting sports news every single day. If you live and breathe purple and gold, if you feel that familiar surge of adrenaline every time LeBron takes the court or AD skies for a block, then you are exactly where you need to be. Because today we're talking about something that every single Lakers fan is either worried about or trying really hard not to think about. What just happened in Game 1? And is this a symptom of something deeper going on with this Lakers team? Now look, we all know it's a 7-game series. We all know the old cliche. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon. But let's not kid ourselves. Game 1s matter. They set tone. They expose matchups. They rattle confidence. And when you go into a Game 1 on the road, up 7 after the first quarter, looking confident, looking poised, and then get completely steamrolled for 2 full quarters, that's not just a bad stretch. That's a wake-up call. So what went wrong? Well, let's break it down the way real fans do. Not just the scoreboard, but the story behind the numbers. The Lakers started off solid. There was good movement, decent tempo, and you could tell the game plan was to contain Luka early and limit the corner threes. They wanted to test whether the Mavericks supporting cast could beat them, and early on, that looked like a decent strategy. But then, out of nowhere, the second quarter hit. Like a tidal wave, and the Lakers never found their footing again. Reddick, in his post-game comments with Mike Trudell, laid out clearly, they were able to get the start of their run through transition and second-chance opportunities. That sounds clinical, but it's actually pretty damning. Let's talk numbers for a second. Dallas had 25 fast break points and 23 second-chance points. That's 48 points on hustle plays. That's not system failure. That's effort. That's awareness. That's Wanta. And when you're in the playoffs, in a hostile environment, you can't afford to be second to the ball, second off the floor, or second in transition. Reddick even mentioned something that should really raise eyebrows. I'm not sure physically we were ready. That's huge. Think about what he's saying. Not mentally, not tactically, physically. That means conditioning. That means intensity. That means getting outworked, plain and simple. So now the question is, why? Why was this team, a team that spent the last 2 months fighting just to climb the playoff ladder, not physically ready for Game 1? Was it overconfidence? Was it poor preparation? Was it just the Mavericks punching first and harder than expected? Or is it something bigger? And this is where things start to get really interesting. Because Reddick also admitted that while the schemes were mostly fine, they'll rewatch the film and make tweaks. The bigger problem was responding to physicality. When the Mavs ramped up their intensity, the Lakers didn't match it. That's the part that worries you if you're a fan. Because effort is supposed to be this team's identity. This is a team that rallied late in the season because of their defense, because of their grit, because of guys like Austin Reeves making winning plays, Rui Hachimura giving you physicality off the bench, and of course, Anthony Davis anchoring the paint like a defensive monster. But none of that showed up consistently in Game 1. So let's shift to personnel for a minute because there are a lot of storylines buried here. Starting with Luka. What more can you say? He started off nuclear. He was hitting tough shots, getting downhill, doing Luka things. But, and this is where it gets wild, he only finished with 1 assist. 1. Which tells us that the Mavericks weren't playing their usual read-and-react game. This wasn't their ball movement, multiple pass offense. This was Luka ISO. Mismatch hunt. And it worked. So what does that tell us about the Lakers' defensive strategy? Was it a mistake to try and limit the playmaking and live with the scoring? Or did they just get beat one-on-one? And what happens now? Do they start sending more help at Luka in Game 2? Do they risk opening up the corners for guys like PJ Washington, Josh Green, or Tim Hardaway Jr.? Because here's the scary part. If Luka only scores and you still get beat badly, what happens when he starts facilitating too? Now back to the Lakers. Let's talk about Austin Reeves. He looked overmatched early. The Mavs clearly targeted him. They used their size, they went at him in switches, and you could tell he was struggling to get into his flow. But credit where it's due, as the game went on, he adjusted. He found counters. He stayed aggressive. And that's important because this Lakers team needs his shot creation and playmaking to balance the offense. Same goes for LeBron. It's true, he had a quiet first half. No sugarcoating that. He looked hesitant. passive at times, missed open threes. But he picked it up in the second half, especially as the game slipped further out of reach. And here's the thing we all have to ask, was this just a bad start, or is Father Time finally knocking louder than we want to admit? Every postseason, it feels like we ask the same question. But eventually, it stops being hypothetical. LeBron is still elite, still one of the smartest players to ever touch a basketball. But at 39 years old, you can't expect him to carry every game, every night. Which means AD has to be dominant. And that's where the silence gets deafening. Because Reddick didn't talk much about AD in the postgame. No detailed breakdown of his impact. No comments on his defense, his touches, his rim protection. And when a guy that important to your franchise, your anchor, your all-NBA big, is basically invisible in the conversation, that's a red flag. Was it the game plan? Did he get schemed out by Dallas? Did they neutralize him with spacing and perimeter-heavy play? Or was it simply an off night? Either way, that can't happen again if this team wants to move forward. And while we're being honest, the bench didn't deliver either. Rua had an open three early that rimmed out. D'Angelo Russell went cold. The rotations felt a little off. There was no consistent punch off the bench, no second-unit spark that could stabilize the momentum. And here's another thing no one's talking about, coaching. This was J.J. Reddick's first playoff game as a head coach. He's smart, he's articulate, he's respected. But the playoff lights are different. Every adjustment matters. Every timeout, every rotation, every ATO, they all count double. And you could tell the Mavs had a better plan. Jason Kidd had his guys prepared. The zone adjustments, the late switches, the off-ball counters to LeBron's actions. Reddick even said in his postgame, every time they ran an ATO, Dallas went zone. That's coaching chess. And the Lakers didn't win that battle in Game 1. But here's the thing. It's one game. This series is far from over. The Lakers have time to adjust, time to regroup. They've been here before. This is a veteran team. They know the margins. They've come back from rough Game 1s in the past, even in tougher matchups. But the urgency has to show immediately. You can't lose Game 2 and go back to LA down 0-2. That's a whole few teams ever climb out of. So the real question becomes, what changes in Game 2? Do we see a more aggressive AD? Does LeBron take control from the tip? Will Reddick shift the defensive coverage on Luka, throw traps, blitzes, maybe even bring in Jared Vanderbilt if healthy for more on-ball pressure? Or, and this is the fear, does this roster just not have the tools to beat a team like Dallas 4 times? Because let's be honest, the Mavs are good. They're deep. They're long. They're fast. And Luka is a legitimate MVP-level player who can win games almost single-handedly. So, Laker Nation, what's your gut telling you? Is this just a stumble on the road to a bounce-back win in Game 2? Or did we just see the blueprint for how to beat the Lakers get fully exposed, and now every team's going to copy it? Could this be the start of a very short playoff run? Or is this the beginning of an epic redemption arc, where the Lakers find their soul, dig deep, and roar back in classic Hollywood fashion? But what do you think? Are you worried about the effort level? About LeBron's start? About JJ's ability to adapt mid-series? Or do you believe in this team's resilience? Let me know in the comments. I seriously want to hear every single take. Because Lakers fans are the most passionate, the most informed, and the most real in the entire league. Because if we're being honest, the Mavericks didn't just beat the Lakers, they dictated the terms. They set the tempo. They played their game, their style, and forced the Lakers to react. That has to flip in Game 2. The Lakers need to punch first. They need to set the tone physically and mentally from the opening tip. One way to do that, push the pace. When the Lakers are at their best, they're running. They're forcing turnovers, grabbing rebounds, and getting out in transition. That wasn't the case in Game 1. It was too much half-court, too much hesitation. That has to change, especially when you have a guy like LeBron who still thrives in the open floor. Another key, role players have to step up. We've talked about Reeves and Rui, but what about guys like Taurean Prince or Gabe Vincent? If they get minutes, they have to make them count. Hit the open threes. Make the hustle plays. The playoffs are where reputations are built or broken. And speaking of reputations, D'Angelo Russell. This is a big moment for him. The talk around him has always been about inconsistency. Flash one night, ghost the next. The Lakers need more than flashes. They need reliability. They need a guard who can keep defenses honest and stretch the floor when things get tight. Let's also talk defense again, particularly the perimeter. The Lakers gave up way too many clean looks off rotations. Part of that is Luka dragging defenders into the paint, but part of it is just slow closeouts and poor communication. That has to tighten up. Every possession matters now. Don't underestimate the mental aspect either. After a tough loss like Game 1, it's easy for doubt to creep in. That's why veteran leadership is so important. Guys like LeBron and AD have to not only perform, but lead. The younger players need to feed off that energy, that urgency. And then there's the crowd factor. Game 2 is still on the road. That means another hostile arena, more adversity. But it also means a chance to silence the doubters, flip the script, and steal back momentum. That's the kind of opportunity that can galvanize a team if they're ready for it. What about JJ Reddick's response? That's another angle to watch. His messaging to the team, his adjustments, how he manages rotations. Game 1 was a learning moment. Now we see what kind of coach he really is. The lights are bright, but so is his basketball mind. Let's see if he can turn theory into action. And don't be surprised if we see some surprise rotation changes. Maybe more Jackson Hayes to disrupt lobs and vertical spacing. Maybe more small ball looks to switch everything and force Dallas into uncomfortable spots. Whatever it is, it needs to shake things up. Because if the Lakers just run it back with the same game plan, they might be running straight into another loss. You can't play reactive basketball against a team like Dallas. You have to take risks. You have to dictate. Look, it's easy to panic after Game 1. But this isn't about panic. This is about pride. About a team that knows how high the stakes are, that understands what it means to wear the purple and gold. Game 2 is their chance to prove that Game 1 was just a blip, not a trend. Because here's the truth. Momentum swings fast in the playoffs. One win can flip an entire narrative. One strong performance can reignite a locker room. All it takes is 48 minutes of inspired, connected basketball. And if this Lakers team shows up the way we've seen them show up before, with urgency, with heart, with discipline, they absolutely can take Game 2 and head back to LA with a split. And suddenly, the whole series looks different. Because let's not forget, this team has been through adversity before. Remember last year's playoff run? They were counted out multiple times. They fought back. They adjusted. And while this year's path is different, the mentality has to be the same. Every possession, every loose ball, every hustle play, that's where this series will be won. There's also a psychological element to this. The Mavericks came in with confidence, with rhythm, with purpose. But if the Lakers can take Game 2, suddenly that confidence starts to waver. Suddenly the pressure shifts back to Dallas. That's the beauty of playoff basketball. The emotional swings are just as brutal as the physical ones. And let's be clear, the Lakers didn't play anywhere near their ceiling in Game 1. That's actually a positive. If you can identify your mistakes, if you know what went wrong, you can fix it. This wasn't some unsolvable riddle. This was a game lost in effort, in energy, in execution. All things that can be corrected. Anthony Davis especially. He knows the spotlight is on him now. The national media is already starting to whisper. Where was the dominance? Where was the defensive presence? Where was the All-NBA force we saw down the stretch of the season? AD has to answer that in Game 2. Not with words, with actions. And if we're talking pressure, don't underestimate how much of it is on Reddick right now. This isn't just about game plans. It's about tone setting. How does he respond in the locker room? What buttons does he push? What rotations does he trust? First-time head coaches in the playoffs are rare for a reason. This is his moment to prove he belongs. And personally, I'm not ready to count this team out. Not yet. There's still too much talent, too much pride. But Game 2 is everything. It's not just a game. It's a statement. Either the Lakers respond, or the season starts to slip through their fingers. So if you enjoyed this video, Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to Lakers News Fan Report, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss an update. We'll be back with full Game 2 reactions, in-depth analysis, and all the rumors and reactions you need to stay locked in this postseason. Thanks for watching, stay loud, stay proud, and as always, let's go Lakers!